You can now hear Movie Heaven, Movie Hell on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favourite shows, plus discover from 20,000 news, entertainment and sports shows. You can also create your own custom playlists. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad and in over 4 million car dashboards. You can stream your favourite podcasts from Stitcher. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And please leave us a review and rating on Stitcher. Thank you. Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken, and
I'm Keith Eyles, and we are both independent filmmakers who enjoy discussing movies and related topics. And for this bonus episode, Simon's been good enough to organise a couple of guests for us. So, Simon, do you want to introduce who we've got on the line?
Yes, certainly. We've got our fellow filmmaker and Alien fan, ADC.
Hi there.
Has been a guest before. Nice to have you back.
Thank you, mate.
And from the AVP website, we've got Aaron.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Welcome, Aaron. Yes, and I'm guessing that from those intros, most people will probably know what this is going to be about then. And we have to say right up front that this will involve spoilers.
Well, I think from the description, people will know what it's about. And as it's a film that's just recently come out, you know, just to warn you, there will be, you know, we're gonna go into this, and so if you don't want the film spoiled, go stop us now. Go rush to the cinema, watch it, and then come back and hear what we have to say about it. But so. Just want to start off with, guys, so did you all go and see it this weekend?
I was going to say I had the fortune of going to the global premiere of it and then caught it again when it came out on last Friday. Yeah, last Friday.
Yeah. How was the premiere?
I'm not really sure to describe it. You know, I've never done a premiere before. So it was all very rushed, you know, straight down, straight in. All the important people were doing what they were doing. And I can't say I ever really detected any sort of different atmosphere inside, apart from the fact that people clapped after it was done. You know, that's not something we really do in the UK in the cinemas.
Isn't that true? Yeah. I saw it the Thursday before it opened. So, just sort of 24 hours before it went on general release. I went to see it at a local cinema. That was me.
What about yourself, Andy?
Well, I've seen it twice now. And
okay.
The first time I saw it, I was disappointed. But I had a change of heart seeing it second time around. And in fact, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Which may surprise. But
a little higher than me.
I got a lot more from it on second viewing. So, which surprised me, which is great.
Well, I went to see it on Sunday, and I went to sort of a local cinema, it was sort of the first screen of the day. Wasn't a packed cinema at all, and I have to say, I think the guy who was behind me didn't have a very good time at all. He I heard a lot of tutting.
Okay.
Me, I laughed in a few places where I don't think I was supposed to laugh. I think this
I can only guess where you mean.
Yeah, I have to say this is the first Alien film that made me laugh. So I just want to say, when I sat down and the 20th Century Fox logo came up, I was kind of like, I was like, oh, I'm sort of feeling a little tension here. This is cool. This is what I want from an Alien film. I I want to feel a little bit tense. And then it opens with two guys in a white room talking for a bit, and the tension just completely dissolved. And it came back a little bit, but it was just never the same. It was just I don't know. I guess it's an opening that they needed to have to kind of, explain what the David character was going to be about. But it was kind of weird for the opening to an Alien film.
Yeah, because it was like a prequel to Prometheus, really, wasn't it? That opening sequence, which was a sort of a bit bizarre, but yeah,
it was. But it served to sort of give to give you an insight into some of David's motivation, and I also particularly like that scene because you got to see Wayland as a younger man, and which I think helps with the sort of slightly dodgy aging makeup that he had in the first movie. So I quite enjoyed that scene, and I thought the first act was very right up until they actually landed on the planet. I actually thought that part of the film was very strong, and I was with it all the way up until that point. As soon as they stepped off that lander, without any kind of environmental protection or even reference to any of that, maybe why they weren't wearing masks or anything, it kind of started losing me from that point.
And if only they were, it would have all been okay, wouldn't it?
Aaron, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you were saying it didn't feel like the start of an Alien film. And that's because I don't really think, they pushed and pushed and pushed this alien angle. And, even after this scene, when the music starts up and Goldsmith's score these themes start to be used in the score as well, it's pushing this alien thing on you. But really, it's still very much, I think, through and through, a Prometheus sequel. So that opening sequence it's the themes of the film, isn't it? It's this creation aspect that pushes David, and it's his old resentment towards mankind and his creators as well. And as much as it's the alienless aspects of Alien, it's still a Prometheus film until, I think, it forces Alien on you, and that's when the film lost me. Right. When it tried to squeeze Alien into the last.
Yeah, no, I go along with what Aaron's saying. Actually, I think the third act, it really fell apart because these two films are kind of fighting each other at that point, and I must say I felt a little bit cheated having Shaw killed off in the way that she was. And going into this movie, I hadn't watched any of the trailers, or I'd read nothing about the film. I'd ignored all the advertising material, so it was going to be as fresh as possible. Because I think with Prometheus, you tended to see too much of the film in the trailers, and certainly a lot of the best parts. Since watching it, I went and I watched some of the mini movies that they put out on the social media before the film came out, such as the Last Supper prologue, which I think is just a beautiful scene, and I think it really harms the film by its omission, because it really sets up the characters, and it really tells you a lot about them before everybody starts getting picked off. And another scene I thought was sorely missed from the film, although it's there in part actually, is when Shaw does make an appearance, and they arrive at the engineer's homeworld, and then David bombs the planet with the black goo. And I think the film would have been stronger if that had been kept in as well. And that may have even eased the transition into the alien aspects of the film a bit more. But overall, I just felt that putting the big chap in there, as we like to call him, I thought that was kind of over-egging it. And, it just felt really shoehorned in and really forced. And it didn't sit well with me, I must say.
Yeah, same.
I have to say, I mean, my reservation started immediately when I heard the Jerry Goldsmith score. I was like, oh, it's great to see it, but this doesn't really fit with what I'm seeing. I mean, you just...
They overdid, didn't they?
Yeah, it was... I mean, every time the sort of Alien music or the Prometheus music kicked in, it knocked me out of the film a bit, and it was just I was like, why is this doing this? I should be a bit more, involved in this. But
Yeah, it doesn't
And-
have a proper soundtrack
Yeah.
of its own, really, does it?
yeah, and why they didn't stick with that, I don't know. But I have to say, the whole thing with what's his name's cameo.
Franco.
Yeah,
Huh.
I mean that was kind of hilarious because wow, what's a really badly designed sleep pod that is. The fact that somebody can be burnt alive in it. I mean, he gets incinerated, and then when they do the funeral, I was half expecting to see the body sort of flip, like it did in Alien.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is another problem that it's got is the fact that it is kind of the greatest hits of Alien and Aliens.
Hmm.
With a little bit of general trope in there, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does
I mean,
tend to
this is quite interesting actually, because I avoided everything before seeing this, and it's interesting because since I've seen it, I actually haven't spoken to anyone about it, and I haven't read any reviews or anything. I just kind of left the cinema feeling the way I did, and this is quite interesting now to hear you guys, and some of the things that you seem to have problems with were I guess kind of similar. I mean, I definitely, there were bits of it I enjoyed, but I definitely had issues with it. I obviously had issues with Prometheus as well.
Who didn't?
And well, yeah, I'm just trying to, I couldn't make up my mind whether I actually thought this was an improvement or not. Although I think it was more exciting.
I have to say, I think out the two, I like Prometheus more. I think Prometheus. Well, I'm going to say this because Prometheus kind of, at least it was reaching for something.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, at least it was sort of, it was that weird thing where it was kind of being set in the same universe as Alien, and then they threw in an alien at the end which looked like a blue dolphin.
Yeah.
Which actually, it made me laugh when the first time I saw it. I mean, inside, I don't think I was laughing in the IMAX cinema, but it looked very much like this creature that was used in the film called Aliens versus Ninja. It looked exactly the same. I'm like, I don't think
right.
Ridley's seen that film. If he had, I think he might have changed the design a lot.
Yeah. I mean, as you know from previous podcasts, I was kind of, a little bit involved in the production for Prometheus, and obviously, saw that there was sort of script rewrites and changes going on throughout the actual shooting process. And I think originally it was supposed to be much more of an Alien film, and Ridley took the decision with Damon Lindelof as doing the second writing on it to sort of move away from that, but sort of set it within the same universe. And one of the things with this, which was this one of these, again, I've not taken a lot of notice, but this actually is one of the rare films that hasn't been released in 3D and stuff. Is that right? This particular one, it just came out 2D and that's it. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen it noted anywhere in 3D.
Okay, interesting, because obviously Prometheus was, so it's sort of interesting that they went away from that. But one of the other things that's quite interesting, like you said, about seeing the younger Wayland character played by Guy Pearce, he was supposed, I mean, the whole reason for the aging makeup in Prometheus was, they did shoot scenes with Guy Pearce as he is, as a younger man, that was supposed to appear in the film.
Did they actually shoot that?
They did, yeah, they did.
I know they wrote it, but I couldn't remember them actually shooting it. I thought it was cut for budget.
No, I think they shot some stuff. I mean, I actually even did a little bit of stand-in for Guy Pearce on a couple of things, but I think they didn't shoot everything that was scripted, but apparently I think there was supposed to be this like video dream sequence or something where he's a young man on a
yacht,
luxury yacht surrounded by loads of beauties and whatever. And I don't know whether they shot that because maybe of the budget of
as far as I know,
getting all those.
Yeah, they didn't.
But they definitely shot something with him as a younger man.
They shot the TED Talk.
Well, there was the TED Talk. Yes, that's right, which was very good.
It's Luke Scott, his son, if I'm correct, shot that. But
he did all the virals for Covenant as well.
He did, yeah.
There's a Scottish filmmaker, Stephen Hamilton, and he says something which stuck with me, which is every movie he believes can benefit from a better edit, or nearly every movie. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, and I try to apply it to my own work when I'm making stuff. And I think certainly having seen deleted scenes in Prometheus and some of the omitted scenes from Covenant, I really do believe there are two better movies in there. Usually it'd be taking stuff out, editing it down, but I think in the case of these particular movies, actually putting stuff back in would really help. Because I think a lot of the time, Scott's kind of had his hand forced with these things. And I actually read an interview a couple of days ago where Fox asked Scott not to include the whole David's monologue about the flashback scene about arriving when they arrive on the engineer's homeworld. Fox didn't want that in the movie at all. So obviously he knows when to pick his battles because he's still doing it at his age, at the top level. So I think that's why some of it survived, but I wouldn't be surprised if he'd want to keep more in there. But I think his hand was forced. But certainly, having seen those two scenes in particular, and I'm sure there'll be more on the Blu-ray. I think that those two scenes would help the film enormously, and the same is true of Prometheus. I mean, there's the whole part at the end, which was hacked to pieces, in my opinion, when the engineer actually speaks to Mr. Wayland, and that whole scene, the deleted scene, plays much better, I think. So I think the irony is that Scott's kind of well known for his director's cuts, and he I don't know if he'll do one for this, but he said he wouldn't do one for Prometheus, and I think it needs it badly. And I think you could really improve both these films and their continuity as well to each other by including some of that back in. I don't know what you guys think about.
I know from watching the Prometheus documentary that he was worried about the pace of it. He wanted it to be quite fastly paced, and both of these films have come under. They're about 2 hours long, and yet you always feel like there's loads missing from it. And it's this weird thing where I don't know if it's Scott or the studio.
So I was going to say, what's his editor? Petro.
The editor on
Petro Scalia.
Yeah, he likes to really seem to just hack them down. Keep it around that 2 hour mark. It seems to be a lot from him, is what I've read.
It's interesting. Style. If you look at Avatar, it's a very long film, but when I remember being in the cinema watching it, it flew by. Same with Titanic; they're both long films, and obviously Cameron just kind of does what he wants with those things. Maybe he's got a little bit more to play with as far as the film company is concerned. But I think you said it perfectly, Simon. They feel like they're missing something when you see them. And, have you seen the other scene, Simon?
What from Covenant?
Yeah, especially the
yes,
last
I have.
Scene.
Yeah,
Frank features in that a little bit more.
Yes, yeah. He has a sniffle and goes to bed early.
Which is a bit like Franco all round.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, I felt there was so much things in it rushed anyway, not just the pace. I mean, the fact that you get introduced to these neomorphs, and you literally you see them spawning, you see them out and about, and then they're killed off very quickly. And then it's same with the Alien. I mean, everything's sort of sped up, and and it was just
Oh, I mean, the gestation period of the Alien was something that really bothered me.
I mean, it was quicker than Alien versus Predator.
I know.
It really was.
A problem with
and this was the point where I laughed. Was when it burst out and it did a little pirouette. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, I mean, what happened to the normal chest burster?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, all of that sort of thing. You know, what is disappointing, and it's interesting that you've all picked up on the sort of pace thing as well, is the fact that when you think about what a beautifully paced film Alien is, you know, and really, you know, some could argue that it's quite slow to get started, but it just works so well. And this, everything not only seemed sort of rushed when they got to the planet, but I felt no sense of scale with anything. Everything seemed small. It seemed to me like, you know, they'd only walked a few hundred yards from the lander ship when everything started to go wrong and they got infected. And the other thing I had a real problem with Prometheus over, and this film didn't seem like much of an improvement to me, is you've got characters just making really stupid decisions.
Yes.
And I think, you know, which is a real shame, particularly when you think about, you know, the arguments that they have in the first Alien film about the whole contamination thing and how Ripley, you know, is really sort of holding her ground with all that stuff, and how sort of mature the characters seem. Whereas in this one, I appreciate they were trying to get a sense of chaos, which the film did very well. But at the same time, you know, I was thinking, God, these people, considering they're supposed to be, you know, 90 years from now or whatever, are really fucking stupid. Did you feel like that?
Well, just a bit. I mean, the pilot of the lander. I mean, at first she seemed to be quite, you know, on the ball when she, you know, she wouldn't let the other woman out of the medical bay. She was, you know, she had it contained. But then when she grabbed the gun, ran in there and tried to sort of take it on herself and then slipped on the blood, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I mean, she shot that gun so much. I mean, she destroyed her own ship. I was just like, I was just,
why did she go to the gun? I mean, at that point, all she saw was a man. So I run off and get a gun. So, I mean, it's enormously flawed, I think. That being said, I did enjoy the scene with the neomorphs in the grass. I thought that was kind of quite well directed. It's interesting seeing it second time around, because the first time I saw it, going back to what Keith was saying and what you were saying about pacing, there's so much in this film and the one prior to it, as opposed to Alien. There's just so much they're squeezing in, and it's practically got the same running time as Alien. And there's all these different things going on. It's a lot to squeeze in, and I just think these films need to kind of breathe more. And I could have done without that third act of which is kind of riffing off Aliens and the Alien Queen battle, where Daniels is on the roof and the aliens caught in the jaws of the crane. I just felt that whole scene was just ridiculous, because she's basically on a rope and she's getting thrown around. The vessel's kind of flying turbulently all around the place. Completely unbelievable.
She would have been torn in two, wouldn't she?
The best SAS guy in the world the best soldier in the world would have a problem being able to just survive being flung around like that, let alone fighting an alien as well. And I think it just kind of insults your intelligence with those kind of scenes. And you know why they're putting it in there? It's because it's spectacle. They want a bit of a grand finale.
Totally.
And it's a bit of a shame, because the strengths of these movies, of these, especially these two, I think, is the new elements they introduced in in Prometheus. Whether you like the idea of the space jockey being a man in a suit as opposed to an alien film, I think we'd all agree that it's not an idea that most fans would have wanted to see. But anyway, you go with it because that's what he's done.
Well, let's bring up the point. Let's bring up the elephant in the room. What do you guys think of David being the creator of the Alien?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the problem with prequels, okay? And the trouble is, us guys are sort of fanboys of all this stuff. I guess we kind of bring it on for ourselves sometimes. But what I always think with prequels in general is, the trouble is the prequels take away the mystery of the original film. So they're basically trying to explain everything to please the fans, to please the fanboys and whatever, trying to explain everything. But as a result, they take away some of the sparkle and the mystery that was there. And I don't know about you, but like both with Prometheus, with the space jockey, and definitely this film with how the eggs and the face hugger came to be, the mystery and if you like, my own headcanon is a lot more interesting to me than what we've actually ended up with in the movie. I don't know whether you guys think that, but I always find it a tad disappointing.
Well, I mean, he's really fucked it up. I mean, he's fucked the whole series up now, because how this is the thing. How on earth is he going to connect these films now to the original Alien?
Don't you?
Time travel. There's a third one, isn't there?
No, it's there's a current theory, and I will cry in the screen if this actually happens. So the Covenant is a colony ship, right?
Yeah.
2,000 crew, embryos in stasis. Looked like there were several thousand eggs in the cargo hold of that derelict ship.
Mm-hmm.
Egg morphine.
Yeah, I've heard one theory that the space jockey is actually David.
Yeah, that's going round as well.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for the fact that the derelict in Alien had been there for a long time. I mean,
it's the implication, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it's been there for centuries. I mean, the fact that the space jockey has actually fossilized into the chair, okay, maybe in Prometheus universe that will happen very quickly because everything else happens very quickly.
I wouldn't put it past him retconning that. I really wouldn't.
Well, it's only supposed to be 20 years later, isn't it, or whatever? Because they've become obsessed now. I notice this is the other difference. They've become obsessed now with giving everything dates. I mean, the film starts and it tells us what date this is happening, whereas one of the things I liked about Alien in the first place was you knew it was in the future, but you didn't know. They never made a big deal about the actual year that it was set in. I mean, you could look it up. I think if you did sort of freeze frames of some of the computer screens and stuff, you could get a bit of information on that. But now they're actually putting a caption up at the beginning of the film with what year it is. And I think they did the same in Prometheus as well, if memory serves.
She mentions it at the end for sure.
Yeah, and they've sort of come like obsessed now with this whole fitting it in, and obviously there's not a great deal of time now between the end of this movie. We've got another movie to sandwich in, and then it's Alien, isn't it?
They've got a square block and a round hole. This is the problem they've got. Scott said, I only read it yesterday, but in an interview back in March, the third film, Awakening, was actually going to be set before Covenant. He's since gone back on that. And
honestly, I think that was a slip of the tongue. You know what he's like with these. He's very rambly.
In that interview, yeah, but he's quite specific about it because he says that, and then he says, so you'll have, he says, number one, you have Prometheus, number two, you'll have Awakening, and three, Covenant. So that's, in his mind at that time, it was obviously deliberate. He's now gone back on that. And something else I read that he'd apparently said was that they decided with this film to make David the creator of the Alien, whereas originally it was going to be the engineers. So he's kind of managing the Alien franchise like Donald Trump's managing the White House. It sits left and he goes right, he says up and he moves down. Nobody really knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So
We actually had a totally different writing team on this one as well, didn't we, than Prometheus? It was John Logan?
And Dante Harper, based off a story by Michael Green and Jack Palgan.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's a completely different team to the last lot, which is interesting.
There was reports after. So Prometheus was obviously massive amendments to John Spates' script, which was that I like John Spates' script far more than I like Prometheus, and the same problem I have.
Alien prequel, wasn't it? Space.
The same problem I have with that script is the same problem I have with Covenant. Should have just got rid of the alien and focused on the new creatures.
Yes,
but that's beside the point. Sorry. So somewhere along the line, all this changes, and we get Prometheus, and we get David. David is the standout star. So after Prometheus is done, Lindelof legs it, and Fox don't know where to go with this thing. And now there was reports that they were taking pitches from pretty much anyone, trying to find a direction for this. Which you can feel when you're watching these things that they don't really know where they're going. And the feeling I get from Covenant, and from what I know from behind the scenes stuff as well, is that David Ridley wants to play with David. That's what he's interested in. He's interested in this android character.
It is a great character, but
yeah, definitely.
He didn't go and do Blade Runner 2 as opposed to Alien, because so much of the emphasis has been on the David character, and for all the things we've mentioned that we didn't like about this movie, I think there are some real positive points as well. I mean, I think the performances are particularly strong. Some of the acting, I think, is fantastic. I think Daniels was good, and Fassbender, I think, was brilliant in this movie, given the script that he had to work with in many places. And I think there's some really good scenes as well, like the scene between Walter and David with Flute, I think was a really good scene, and it was directed in a nice way as well. So I think, in some of the set pieces, like I said, I didn't like the third act, the alien, and I didn't like the alien on the mothership either. It was all the alien stuff, as Aaron said earlier. I kind of made me cringe, to be honest. And even in some places, I thought that the CG was quite weak. But I think there are parts of the film which are quite strong.
Yeah, I mean, the introduction of the neomorphs, especially the backburster, was very strong. But then it fell into the Prometheus trap of, well, there's no one set way of these things coming out. So one guy gets it through the back and the other one just throws it up. And it's just like, I think that annoys me, just the fact that if you set up a creature and it's it's sort of birthing cycle and stuff, don't change it. I mean, it would have been great to see the guy tear his clothes off and see this thing come out of its back instead of him just go bleh. I was like, Jesus, it's.
I know what you mean, because in Aliens, particularly, Cameron sets really strong ground rules regarding the life cycle, and you understand that fairly quickly. It's established fairly quickly, and then it just all makes sense. You don't really question it. This is a lot looser, say the least.
Oh, big time. I mean, when you look at the first film, forgetting the whole Queen thing that Cameron set up in Aliens, but when you look at the first film, it's like the space hugger jumps on Kane, and there's almost a whole, when they try and get that off, it's almost like a whole day or at least an evening or whatever passes before the face hugger comes off. And then, they're going to have a meal and everything, and a chest bursts. And then again, it's hours later before it's a full-grown alien. Whereas all that happens in this film sort of on camera in the matter of about 4 minutes or whatever. Well, and you're like, really?
That's when I was holding my head.
I mean, this is the thing. Another thing that annoyed the hell out of me was that the guy who got the face hugger on his face and then it was taken off immediately still had an embryo implanted. I mean, these things are amazing. They are so quick.
Yeah. So
really annoyed me.
In Billy Crudup's case, it was literally a matter of minutes, it seemed like, while David throwing stones at him. And it couldn't have been much longer because somebody would have come looking for him, I would have thought.
Yeah.
And also the chest burster was like a mini alien. like a full-grown mini, rather than the sort of, I mean, I know it's kind of laughable now, although I still think it's wonderful that the chest burster kind of moved along like it was on skates, literally, when it flew off the table and stuff. But in this one, they had that sort of CGI thing, like you said, that almost did a pirouette or whatever. But it looked like a sort of mini alien warrior rather than a chest burster as such. And
Yeah,
again, I was a bit confused by that. I was like, that's not what I remember it being.
As much as it irritated me that it was such a deviation from what we knew, I have to admit I really liked how creepy I thought it looked. The whole see-through, translucent aspect of it, and its all weird proportions. I thought that was pretty cool, even though I was sat there going, that's not what they fucking look like.
It was a lovely effect, and I think there was the neomorph that after he's killed, I can't remember her name, one of the girls, David goes face to face, and he's talking about breathing on a horse, and that effect there with that neomorph, I thought it was a masterful effect, really beautiful effect, and I thought I was going to say, I thought the neomorphs, all the adult ones looked really good. The CG on them looked really, really nice. Whereas the alien, you could noticeably tell it was CG, even though there might have been a couple of shots that looked great. Towards the end when it that one where he's on the roof of Tennessee's, piloting the lander, and he's on the roof. That was nice, but it didn't work all round, and not every shot was as good as that.
Yeah, and also we lost the shot of the alien running along the corridor, sort of doing an alien's kind of, jumping.
Yeah, the red corridor.
Yeah,
that was a shame to see that one go.
Yeah, we got alien vision instead, which again was crap.
Well again, it's new, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes away the mystique. I mean, do you need that shot? Isn't it better just... No. Because Fincher did something similar, but it wasn't actually alien vision in Alien 3, but it gave you that kind of feel, which I thought was a lot more powerful.
Yes, yeah, I was thinking that. I thought, Alien 3 did it, even though it was, it was put in there as maybe as a crutch, really, because they couldn't animate the alien that fast. So to have that sort of point of view or a shot following the people as it's chasing it, works a lot better. But it was,
Don't you think on a technical level that's almost as cheap as the way they did it in Covenant? I mean, literally just a fisheye lens, and Covenant you've got like a Photoshop filter.
I'm going to say this. I bet you it was more expensive to do the Photoshop filter. I bet you they spent hours working on that. I bet somebody got paid a lot. Well, then again, saying that, the state of special CGI effects and how much these guys get paid, probably not. But
it wasn't.
You see, I really sort of dislike the fact that we get. As I said, I know Fincher kind of did it in 3 to an extent, but I kind of hate the fact that we even get an alien point of view of anything, because again, when you look at what Ridley did in the first film and what Cameron did in Aliens, we were with the human characters, and the aliens were always the threat from the outside. We were never kind of in the first person with the aliens, and to me it just feels a bit out of place, to be honest. But the thing that this whole thing suffers from, and it's interesting because I like my commentaries, and on Prometheus there's a very interesting writer's commentary, which it's part recorded by the original writer and part by Damon Lindelof, and it's so interesting when you actually listen to what they say, because it's almost like they're trying to correct themselves now, because that original script was definitely an alien prequel script with aliens in it, and they tried to move away from that and have all these other parasites and creatures and stuff. And now this whole thing about David spending 11 years or whatever the gap is experimenting on them to sort of get to where we've got to with the egg and the face hugger, it really does sound like, oh crap, we've got to course correct this now and get it back to where we end up at the beginning of Alien. And to me, it just reeks of that. It just feels really forced and not satisfying from a fan point of view. At least for me, anyway. It just feels a bit I don't know, a bit convenient. I can't quite describe it. It doesn't quite work for me, I have to say.
It seemed like the only criticism that Fox took from Prometheus was so far down on the list of problems with Prometheus, but it seemed like the easiest to deal with, and that was it wasn't Alien. I mean, that seems to be what they took from that and went forward with the next one. People hated that it didn't have an obvious alien. Fucking throw it in Covenant, that'll fix it all. It seemed very cheap to me in that regards. You know, while there was stuff to like in Prometheus, that was the least of its problems. And I think Covenant sort of fixed some of the other issues with that. I mean, I think the characters were a lot more relatable. I think their sort of banter, and I won't say it was as good as Alien, because obviously it wasn't, but their sort of overlapping dialogue and their sort of dynamics were a lot more Alien-like than they were Prometheus-like. So, you know, it wasn't as bad as Prometheus, but when their main focus seems to be, this was the issue, we'll fix it, that's when that's when we get this really rushed third act, because Scott wants to play with David, but Fox is telling him he's got to use aliens, and he's sort of cramming Prometheus and Alien together, and that's when, you know, you get this really rushed third act. I think why we get the shit Alien life cycle in it, because he doesn't have the time, or he doesn't want to take the time to build it up properly.
I think in the rush to get to Alien, you are missing out on a lot of things that could have been taken forward from Prometheus. I mean, we don't really see engineers in the film, for instance. A lot of those questions that were thrown up by Shaw in Prometheus and are not even attempted to be answered, really.
Oh no, they're just wiped out completely.
And it's such a shame, because you know, I mean, the engineers, if you want to call them that we do see on this planet when the ship arrives there with David before the bombing, you get some glimpses of the people in the crowd, and they look different than the engineers, and you know, they're quite pink, and yet the engineers are anemic white. They're kind of translucent white, and you know, why do they look different? It would be nice to have an answer. Maybe it's because they're genetically engineered, because they're soldiers or whatever. But it would have been nice to have had, you know, just some of those things fleshed out a bit more. But no, instead you've got to race to the roof to fight the alien.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. It's a real shame.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if their different appearance was to save down costs on makeup effects.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's a real shame, because
Prometheus.
that scene when the spaceship arrives on that planet and this huge vehicle comes out to meet the spaceship, meet the derelicts, or whatever you want to call it, the juggernaut. All of that stuff looks great, and it would have been nice to see a little bit more of that civilization, and it's skipped over really briefly. When the Covenant crew actually arrive at that place and they see all these charred bodies everywhere, I don't know, it just seemed, it didn't ring quite true to me, because if you saw that, you would be like, what the hell is this? You know, what's going on? And there's none of that. It's just they're straight to David's place. Nobody's asking any of the questions that really you'd be asking.
And it felt really small, didn't it? To me, that was supposed to be something that was epic scale, yet the way it was actually handled made it feel like it was on a back set to me. It just felt really, I don't know, the sense of scale wasn't there for that stuff. I felt. And the other thing with David is what I didn't quite get. And again, I hadn't sort of revisited Prometheus before watching this, so I may have missed something in the gap. But correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of Prometheus, didn't David get like sort of the knowledge of the universe, or 2,000 years of knowledge or something from the architects at the end? Didn't he gain that or something? And if he did, my question was, well, why did he just spend the last decade then, you know, doing sort of perverse experiments to create this perfect organism? I don't know. It just, again, his motivations as an android, as an artificial life form, I wasn't really sure. Suddenly he sort of became
I think
Mr.
they,
Evil, and it didn't sort of seem quite right to me. I don't know, but maybe I missed something in the 3 years in between or something.
it's just not fleshed out enough, Keith. I mean, they do allude to that when David's talking to Walter, and he cites a verse being from Byron, and it's actually should be attributed to Shelley. And Walter says that if there's one note off in the symphony, then it's no good. So David is this kind of flawed AI who is a psychopath basically, and but yeah, it's not. I mean, it's all skipped over very quickly. All of this stuff. That's one of the major problems with it, I think.
Well, I have one question which was never answered by the film, and I don't think you guys can answer it. But what was with the corn?
I assume that was just foreshadowing to there being a presence of somebody on the planet.
Yeah, I just think that's because there's a civilization there, or there was, i.e. the engineers. That was just the farm.
Now, the thing is that the idea of there being corn, which is a human thing. I mean, I guess they were trying to make out that maybe Shaw was alive. But then when you think about it, I mean, David didn't really need to eat, did he? I mean, I don't think androids eat, do they?
No, but I think the corn was there because a civilization was there. And the corn just happens to be left over after the black goo, or whatever you want to call it, has kind of, killed all the animal populations.
Yeah, but they didn't kill off the plant life. But yeah, it just seemed weird that there was this field of corn, and the way that the film was portraying it was that there had been that Shaw had survived. And that this sort of corn, she was growing this corn so that she could, make bread and live. But it didn't ring true. It didn't ring true that it would be for the engineers would grow it. And in fact, it was just this one little field of corn.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, the whole. I did sort of have a bit of an issue with the fact that they all just kind of, went out and explored and very quickly. That guy got infected, and it just all sort of, I don't know, it all just kind of, I sat there. I mean, it's interesting to hear that you guys were also sort of dissatisfied with it as well, because I felt that way. I was, if I'm honest, my reaction was disappointment. And I thought after Prometheus, I couldn't be more disappointed, and that this was going to be on the right track. But I still just feel that it was, it was entertaining to a point, and I think it was, as Ridley's films always are, it was incredibly well made. I mean, it looked beautiful and was nicely shot and all of that sort of thing. But it just for me missed the mark. And I mean, well, I'm sure we'll get there, but I mean, don't even get me started about the obvious twist ending.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I thought anybody that doesn't spot that.
Yeah. I spotted it straight away, and it was.
Why did they have to make it so obvious?
Yeah. It was such an insult.
But they just did it, didn't they?
Well, the film's so full of stereotypes and tropes that the moment you knew that there was two androids in there, then it was coming a mile off.
And the fact he cut his hair, that was convincing. Because I sort of thought, they've let his blonde, Lawrence of Arabia hair has actually sort of grown out over the 10 years, and he had that sort of long hairdo. But then he went and cut it, and you sort of thought, oh yeah, well, we know why he's doing that, don't we?
Yeah, but nobody asked the question. Nobody else said, oh, you've got your hair. I mean, because he looks exactly like the other guy as soon as he's cut his hair. So at that point, a plan's afoot. Got in mind, but
to some degree, I mean, how many films, and probably you guys, I mean, I would, if you're on your own for 10 years and then suddenly people does anything. I mean, there's so many tells pretty much throughout the moment we meet David, and it also doesn't help that the audience is ahead of him. Is ahead of the crew. So, those moments when he's like, you've got all those colonists on there. How interesting. Something's happening. And then later on, with him not regenerating his wounds like Walter does, and him displaying emotions during the whole tracking of the alien and Daniels and everything, the visible relief. And it's such a shame with us. It's brilliant. The Catherine Waterston and Daniels, when she realizes in that cryo tube, I thought that was a fucking fantastic moment. I really loved that bleak ending.
Yeah,
and how she played that.
Yeah, I mean I didn't like the way it was made. It was dumbed down and made too obvious that it was really David, and they could have played that smarter. But yeah, I like that ending, and with her in a cryo.
Oh, yeah.
Then the music of the gods into Valhalla as he goes and puts the facehugger embryos into stasis. I thought that was really nice. I loved the way the film opened, and especially the first third, and I thought the ending was pretty good as well.
Yeah, I thought the dark ending, the bleak, ending as you put it, was great. I love that, and a great setup for where it's going. I just wished it hadn't been so obvious. That was my problem. I was like, God.
Well, I have to disagree, because I came when I saw the embryos, the facehugger embryos and stuff like that, my heart absolutely fucking sank, because it's just like, oh my god, it's like, really, they really fucking this up. I was just like, that was the thing. When the credits came up, I was just sitting there going, well, where the hell are they going to go with this? Because there's
anywhere.
Well, it looks like Oregon 6 might turn out to be LV-426. I mean, it's possible. You've got 2,000 colonists, as someone mentioned earlier.
Isn't LV-426 supposed to be in the same system as the one that was in Prometheus?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be LV-426. I mean, they say they mapped it, and they say there was, lakes and stuff on it. I can't see it going that way. But with how closed off they seem to be making the universe, I can understand why people might feel like it is going to be.
Never know. It wouldn't surprise me if they did that. They're a colony with terraforming equipment, and so I hope that isn't the case. I really hope not, because that would.
Well, timeline-wise, they're far too early to be Hadley's Hope or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we got the long cryo sleep, the 58 years or whatever it is.
Well, it's only seven years in the film.
Haven't we? Yeah, so it's like.
I'm thinking more of colonists as eggs on that derelict, but maybe there's another.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, or if it got diverted somewhere and they ended up being the cargo. As much as I'd hate it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
What's interesting is Alien versus Predator has always been sort of by fans universally hated, because it's kind of messed up the continuity and messed up the timeline and all this sort of thing. But to be perfectly honest, for me, these films aren't doing any better at all at putting that right. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, this is the thing this film has done. I mean, it's because the thing about the xenomorph was that they were an evolution through nature. This was like the perfect organism that it developed over God knows how many years, and then this film comes along and says, no, actually it was made by an android over 10 years, because he was bored or something, or he just wanted to make the perfect organism. So suddenly it's not an alien anymore, is it?
Yeah, it literally takes.
Yeah. Now, as much as I'm not a big fan of Alien versus Predator, at least they didn't do that. At least they still made the alien an alien, something that came from nature. I mean, the fact that the predators were using it as sports, that these creatures were out there, and that's they were able to sort of capture a queen or get the eggs.
Wasn't there?
Yeah. And it's really taken a big old shit over the other Alien films.
It has in that regard, because, as you say, it's not really an alien anymore. What it is an artificially sort of genetically engineered, designed organism by an AI now, which comes from Earth. And but of course, the space jockey originally was an alien as well.
Yeah.
So now they're both not aliens. And getting back to what Keith was saying about sense of scale, it all makes this universe that was created in the first movie, it all feels a lot smaller.
Yeah, well, suddenly it's all created by Wayland Industries, whereas in the first two Alien films, it's about Wayland Yutani or whatever wanting to get this Alien because of the potential of it, whereas now it's kind of, well, if you track it back, it's sort of come from you guys anyway. It's sort of like
ownership rights.
Bizarre. Yeah, exactly. It's like
it is such a shame, isn't it? But I guess that goes back to Prometheus and the decision that Scott made to actually to originate where these creatures came from. And as I said earlier, I think it's a decision that most fans and all of us, I think, would be in agreement that I think was a mistake, basically. But if you go with what, and you just have, if you want to enjoy the films, you just have to go with what he's given us. And so I guess in that sense, I kind of try and look on the bright side. And I must say, like on the second viewing, I did enjoy it a lot more. I came away first viewing feeling like you, Keith, Simon, really disappointed. When I saw it second time, I think I just I noticed the positives more, and so that's why I enjoyed it more.
Well, to be frank with you, I ain't gonna watch this again. And if anything, I'm probably gonna skip the third one. I think I'm gonna treat these like I treat the Star Wars prequels. They don't exist. No, seriously, because he's done a George Lucas. He has a little bit. Yeah, he's done Midi-chlorians.
But it's the exact same sort of situation, isn't it? I mean, Lucas was one part of a machine that made Star Wars so great, and then when it came to the prequels, everybody's telling him to go and do his own thing, so he loses that creative, sort of environment that he had before. And it's the exact same thing with Scott. People have a tendency to pick out one name, when really what made Alien so great was the effort of everybody. It was the conflict. It was the conflict of O'Bannon and Giler and Hill bragging out this script until it was
Ron Shusett and all those guys. Yeah.
Because all those ideas were really smart, weren't they? And we want and we're deserving of a more intelligent movie, or at least its execution.
The problem is Scott isn't a storyteller, is it? Isn't a narrative storyteller. It can paint pretty pictures, and by God, he paints pretty pictures. But I think he has far much influence over the narrative itself,
especially with this franchise. Absolutely, because when he's got a script like The
Martian.
Martian. I mean, look at that, or Gladiator. When he's got a strong script, it's when the script is there. I think we'd all agree that the script was weak with this film.
Definitely.
There, then he makes a brilliant film, and that is the heart of the problem again.
I think when he's brought onto a project, the projects are much better than when they are, when it originates from himself, or that he has a massive hand in the writing of it, because he is also he's an ideas guy. I mean, did you guys see the documentary for Legend, when the writer was talking about working with Scott, where they were talking about Jack, and at one point Scott got to the point where he wanted the guy to be green. He's like a green man, and it's like, you want Jack to be green? And I think if there aren't those voices that saying that sounds really stupid.
But is at that point in his career where people won't tell him that? The dude's a fucking legend. Nobody's going to say no to Ridley Scott anymore. I mean, you see it in the Prometheus documentary as well. You see it in Furious Gods at the start of it, when the concept artists are talking about Scott's ideas, and they start off saying, "Well, we didn't really think that was the way to go, but Scott sort of talked us around into it." And you can see that they're just like, we couldn't tell him no, it was stupid, basically.
It's such a shame, because he is one of my childhood heroes, and definitely like the first two Alien movies are amongst my favorite movies of all time. But I think this is the problem with prequels. Like I said, it takes away some mystery. The other thing is, the more material you get, and we all on one hand crave and strive for more material, but on the other hand, all of the time you are diluting the source material. And I have to say, I've said this all along. For me, I've always been a fan of the Alien franchise, the sequels, the spin-offs, even the Alien versus Predator stuff, I've wanted to see. But with the Alien franchise, apart from the first two movies, which to me are golden, I have real issues with everything else that's come, you know, since it. And, you know, these prequels are no exception. I am dissatisfied with them, much as I sort of every 3 years get excited that we're getting a new Alien film. You know, I always feel let down, and the same applies with the Predator series as well. You know, you know, love the first film. I actually don't even have a problem with the second film, although loads of people do. But that's, but, you know, when they did that Predators movie a few years back, I just thought that was absolute shite, and I was like, really, you know, and you know, I'm feeling maybe not quite as strong as that, but I'm feeling it with these Alien prequels as well. They're not living up to what I'd hoped they'd be, you know, sadly.
I think that's, you know, just to sort of go back to what you were saying just now and a bit earlier, you know, about prequels and mystery. Is it necessarily a problem that it's a prequel and given explanations, or is it the explanation it's given? I mean, for me, the whole side of Alien and Predator, you know, all the comics, all the books and all the games and stuff like that. So the thing that really drew me into all that was this question of the space jockey. And, you know, all that sort of lore always sort of made it sound like the aliens were some ancient weapon that they devised, and, you know, feeding this sort of Lovecraftian ancient cosmic sort of intention that O'Bannon had wanted the jockey to have in the first place. Now, if the prequels had have gone more in that direction, you know, the old artificial creation of the space jockey that was made to fight some equally fucking horrendous other creature, would that have been more satisfying? Or is it just
like the sound of that better? I think I should have done the script, man.
It's like some of the you know, the graphic novels and books do, you know, they fill in those gaps really well. And yeah,
I mean, I personally am dissatisfied with the direction of the prequels just because it's closing it off so much. I don't mind the concept of a prequel. I mind the way they're going with it. And I can understand sort of why Scott might think it's ingenious to have the alien be a creation of man's creation and then the alien kills man. You know, I can understand why he might think that's cool, but it's not what a lot of people have think of the alien, I suppose. You know, it's him and Arthur Max on the Prometheus documentary, Giga aesthetic in Prometheus. I mean, some of the shapes are there, but you know, the texture and everything, it's not Giga's, it's not true Giga. And they talked about it being done deliberately to subvert people's expectations. So people go to watch a fucking Alien prequel about the space jockey thinking it's going to be full of Giga style, and it's not. They did it on purpose because people expected it. So we get Alien now, and instead of an ancient you know, angel of death, he flips it again and makes David the creator. You know, he's subverting expectations in the wrong way, and I think that's what's the problem with it. He wants to surprise folk, but he's just because these ideas have been around forever and people know them and expect them doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I mean, he could have visualized an entire Giga landscape. He could have visualized fucking swarms of alien fighting equally nightmarish creatures, and it'll look great. Yeah, we might have expected it, but we might have hoped for it, and it would have still been good. You know, rather than this closed off 20-year, 30-year. That's where I get frustrated.
What we've got with this latest movie, as a result of his line of thinking, is that a movie which is you know, highly derivative of the other movies, you know, like people running around in corridors trying to shoot aliens and avoiding them and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it is a shame because, you know, the creatures as we originally imagined them to be, you know, I think you could have gone in really interesting directions of all of that stuff. And as far as the Giga stuff is concerned, I mean, there's so much source material to draw from. And it would have been really interesting to see those you know, some of that artwork brought to life.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the subverting expectation, you know, when it's done right is good, but when it's not, then yeah, it's terrible. I mean, Yeah. There's I won't go there because it's a whole nother podcast, but there's a TV show that I'm into at the moment, which is called Bates Motel, which is a sort of prequel to Psycho. But again, they've kind of been respectful to the source material, but they've gone in a completely different direction with it, and in a good way. And that's actually worked, I think, rather than just trying to remake what you'd expect. But like you said, with this, yeah, it would have been good to have gone more with the sort of Giga creation than necessarily trying to do something different. And again, the flip side of that is then they give us stuff that the audience want to see, which we've seen loads of times before, which is people being chased down a space corridor by an alien. So it's kind of it's a difficult one to balance, I think, and when it's done well it works, and when it isn't, it's just unsatisfactory. And that's how I feel about this, really.
Well, I think what also the problem is fundamentally they just don't work as either horrors or thrillers. They're not scary, and that was the thing that was so great about the first Alien film and Aliens, was they were thrilling and they were scary and they were edge of your seat, and they threw in all this other stuff as well, but it was a scary experience. And Prometheus and Alien Covenant, as much as they advertising wise try to sell these as thrillers and horrors, are missing the mark massively, just trying to throw in all these other ideas which should be like subtext or be not such a major part of these stories. And that's the as well as sort of messing around with the mythos, where these things come from, that is its other problem, is it's just not working as a thriller.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the mythology is one thing, and the fact that these films aren't they're more action orientated than necessarily thriller stroke horror. But the other thing as well, and I do take the point that you all made earlier, that it is definitely an improvement on Prometheus. But again, characterization. The first two movies had fantastic developed multi-dimensional characters, with good banter and all of that. Both of those first two films had that. In my opinion, even though the characters are definitely better in this than they were in Prometheus, but I still felt they were lacking. Some of them were strong, and David is obviously in stroke Walter is very interesting, and Fassie's a great actor and whatever. But I don't know, some of these characters, even though the actors were good, I thought that some of the characters were just making stupid decisions, and I had a real issue with that. I didn't believe some of these characters. I was like, they're not as strong as they used to be written. But I don't know, maybe that's just because I'm becoming an old fart or something. I don't know.
The only one I had an issue with was Aurum, and that was only when he made that stupid decision to follow David. Other than that, I didn't really have an issue with the character decisions in this. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do if I'm faced with a friggin' alien. And yes, there were some silly little horror elements. Rosie Rosenthal goes off on her own, so of course she gets shot. What's his face? Ben Rigby's character. He needs a piss, so he goes off on his own, and that's when, of course, he gets infected. But dude needs a piss. He can't piss in front of, a lady. So yeah, they were stereotype sort of situations. They were trope situations, but the only one that genuinely made me just go ugh was Aurum just being bled blindly to his death.
Yeah,
that was a silly scene, and it's a shame because he had a really good line before David kind of leads him off to see the eggs, where he says, "I've seen the face of the devil before," and he kind of alludes to something terrible that's happened in his childhood. A really interesting line, and quite a nice moment there. And then he just goes off, and David sort of leads him down this sort of path to doom, and it doesn't ring true really. And it's just a little. He's way too gullible at that point.
That was really badly done. I mean, it was like, oh, here's the egg I created. Oh, have a look. It's fine. Oh.
At that point, it was getting like Scooby Doo.
Yeah,
I mean, really, in a few parts of this film, it goes Scooby Doo.
Yeah. It was literally to feed the exposition and then move us on to the next bit, wasn't it? Really. I mean,
it's a shame because these are movies made for the masses now, and so we're kind of losing a lot of intelligence from these stories because these are mainstream movies. They're blockbusters made to put bums on seats. And
yeah, that's a good point. This was a 12 certificate, wasn't it? This one was it?
No, it's a 15.
It's a
15.
15.
But still,
it's
the original
R in America.
Right?
I was going to say they're letting letting it slip on the 12A there, especially that backburster.
Well, the originals have been reclassed as 15s, you know.
Yeah.
I think the only one of the original films that actually still holds its 18 rating is Predator 2.
Oh wow.
Oh wow. Okay.
And when Alien, the director's cut, was released, what was it, 02? 04? 02? Somewhere around.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
that was a 15.
Yeah.
That was a 15 in the cinema.
That's right, yeah. But that was because some of the fret was taken out. So to wrap things up, as I've said, I'm not looking forward to seeing the next one, and I don't know, see how it goes. I might read some reviews first, and if
you'll
better,
you'll have to see. Otherwise, you can't do another podcast, can you?
You're stronger than me, Simon. I will obviously, I'm such a sucker. I will go and watch this stuff regardless.
That's the line, isn't it? We will, and we'll just hope that it improves. And in the meantime, we'll kind of look on the bright side and try and get from it what we can. And you just have to hope that going into the next one, it's going to. I didn't expect this one to be great, to be honest, after Prometheus, and my expectations won't be raised for the next one. But hopefully, fingers crossed.
I didn't hate this. I didn't love it. I enjoyed it. Despite my mini rant earlier, I would happily watch it more. I mean, there's elements of it I hate, and the third act really, really irritates the shit out of me. Pretty much just the whole treatment of the alien. But up to that, when it's sort of like a Prometheus-esque type thing, but without being rambling, I really dug it. I like the cast, I like the characters, I like the dynamics between them. I just wish they hadn't shoehorned the alien in. I'd probably rate it above Prometheus and Resurrection, below the initial trilogy. But it wasn't a perfect film by any standards, but it didn't frustrate me as much as it seemed to with you guys.
Well, no. I mean, I'm kind of agree with you there. I mean, it was, if I said I hated it, that would be a slightly strong. It was enjoyable on some levels for what it was, but it was also, a disappointment in areas as well. So, I'm pretty much in the same camp as you there. I certainly, when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm hoping it's going to be a loaded Blu-ray with Ridley Scott commentary and, shitloads of extras and all that. And I'll definitely get it, I'm sure, and give it another whirl. But, my initial reaction, as I said, I hadn't spoken to anyone about it at all before this podcast. And it's interesting. I had hang-ups with the change to the mythology, some of the characters in it, and the ridiculous twist ending, which was to me just blatantly obvious. I was like, really? You've got to be some sort of form of stupid not to see that one coming, So I just thought it was a little bit weak on those levels. But it had its good points as well. Some of the action was a lot of fun. Some of the visuals were very good. It's just trying to recorrect itself, and I'm going to be interested. I do want to see the next one because I'm interested to see how they get to Alien. Really am interested, and I really hope that they don't fuck it up even more, basically.
But if we tell him that we all expect it to be the David in the pressure suit as the space jockey and the eggs to be the Covenant's cargo, maybe he'll subvert our expectations and go somewhere different with it.
There you go.
Oh, that was fun. So, Aaron, what are you up to these days? You're running the AVP website, is that correct?
It's Alien vs Predator Galaxy, avpgalaxy.net. Going on a good nearly 15 years now that's been running.
Wow.
Yeah, so
does this
dedication.
mean that you like those movies?
No, do
Oh,
not
okay.
take. No, it was.
I'm only asking. Don't take offense, please. I'm only asking.
I've got to. I always feel like I'm being, accused of something. After I saw the premiere, I got to be involved with the junket, the press junket afterwards, and I specifically avoided saying the website name when I got to meet Ridley Scott because I know his opinions of the. And I'm like, look, we didn't start for the films; we started for the games. It was when it was good that we've started.
Yes. Right, okay, yes, because of course all that came before, didn't it? Yes, yeah. Interesting.
The games, as a concept, I think it'd work. It's pretty much the only crossover I genuinely think could work. It's just, when you try and do these films on the cheaps, when you get the AVP films, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Andy, what about yourself? What are you up to these days?
Yeah, I'm busy working on various things, and there's a new Predator movie coming out as well. I think, Aaron, isn't there soon?
Yeah, The Predator.
Which is Shane Black has written. Has he written it and directing it? I think he's directing it.
He's directing it. It was Fred Decker wrote it off a story him and Black did, and okay. I think they might have a little bit together, but I think it's primarily Fred Decker's script.
And when's that out?
Next year.
Next July, maybe it back. I can't remember when they've moved.
Well,
let's
back. Just hope it's better than the last film, because God, if anything was a major disappointment, that was for me. I have to say,
could have been far worse.
Predators. I was like, oh, that had so much potential, and what do we get?
that was another film done on the cheap. It's when they try and.
Yeah, it's very low budget, really, for what it was.
Yeah.
Well, what annoyed me is they showed other creatures from the same, planet, species, whatever, as the predators, and they had, like normal human red blood as opposed to that sort of translucent blood stuff, that luminous blood thing, and I was like, well, that makes no bloody sense. So that annoyed me straight away, and then. You land and you've only got so many rounds of ammunition. So what am I going to do? I'm going to fire at absolutely everything. Again, made no sense at all to me. I was like, what a stupid film this is. But hey, that's a whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah. Well, when The Predator comes out, we'll get you guys on and we can then, tell us, say our thoughts on it. I mean, fingers crossed for it. I mean, Shane Black's a good director, and it's good to see Fred Decker, doing the screenplay and stuff. So,
that's kind of hopeful, actually, that those guys are involved. We'd love to see another good Predator movie, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So, how would you, out of 10, how would you rate Alien Covenant?
I'd say 4 out of 10. It looks good. It's I like the new creatures, but it was rushed. A lot of stupid mistakes. Didn't really get to know the characters, and then you just throw in that third act, and it's a big, there's 4 out of 10 for me.
Wow. I'd be probably slightly more generous and go for a 6 out of 10, I would say. Going on my initial feeling from it.
I was struggling between a 6 and a 7, mostly because that third act just it was a shame for me because I up to that point, and I came out of the film on a bit of a low, being so pissed off with everything they'd done with the Alien. But I ultimately compromised and went for a 6.5.
Yeah.
You already gave it a 7, didn't you, Andy?
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.5. That's being really generous, but yeah. I mean, it's a 7, isn't it? It's I'll give it 7.5 because I enjoyed it a lot more. I enjoyed it the second time round, so I was kind of confused the first time I saw it, but
Well, there's a book coming out soon, a prequel novel, so hopefully that'll fill in some of the gaps in between Prometheus. Hopefully. Well, it's Alan Dean Foster's writing it, so he did he did the novels of the other films, the first 3.
Yeah,
and that's actually encouraging. Yeah.
I mean, maybe he tends to kind of flesh things out, and he'll probably put a bit more intelligence into it.
Well, he asks questions, so he likes. He likes to give explanations for the questions he has. So I think that'll work, give it a bit more depth.
Actually, in terms, you might be able to answer this if you guys know this, in terms of the sort of expanded universe of all of this sort of thing, I've noticed that there's some aliens or alien novels that have come out quite recently.
Yeah,
and
the time
I'm not sure where are they supposed to sit in terms of the timeline of these films. Are they anything to do, or are they completely their own thing?
So 2014, I think, is when the new one came out. So they rebooted the EU basically with the comics and the books, and Titan brought out of the Shadows, which it sounds hammy. It's based in between Alien and Aliens, and it's one of those untold stories where Ripley's awake in between. So you have this huge looming big red button as how it's going to reset her memory and stuff. But it had it was a lot better than it had any right to be. Based off that premise alone, how hokey does an unknown Ripley adventure in the middle of the first 2 films sound?
It just sounds impossible. But
yeah.
Okay.
So that was the problem I had with that. You were wondering how she was going to forget all this. So it was like this looming presence over the book, but the whole thing was it was good.
Okay.
The second one they did is a sequel to that, but it's set after Resurrection, and it is very much sort of a reset of the universe. So after Resurrection, Weyland Yutani was sort of got big again with terraforming the planet after the Auriga crashed into Earth and fucked all the atmosphere up. And so they sort of terraformed the planet back to good, and they got all better and everything. So it resets it as they're the big bad corporate presence, and it's sort of set on they go to the same planet from the first book. The third one is a prequel to Aliens, where it's basically from the special edition where you see the Jordans go and investigate the derelict, and it's also about the infestation of Hadley's Hope. That was all right, apart from it had another fucking shoehorned Fox thing in it where there was cloning Marines present on the colony, which annoyed the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean,
they did that a long time ago with Newt's Tale, didn't they? Which was that story taken from
there's elements of that were used in the book River of Pain, and then after that they did an AVP trilogy called The Rage Wars, which was a sequel to the second book, where it was set in the future, and it used elements of those. Like they introduced like a new sort of alien species, and it followed all on from that. And it's like this big sort of, I always describe it as a soft hard sci-fi. So it's hard sci-fi in its concepts, but it doesn't go all the way and bore you to tears. So it was a soft, hard sci-fi. Very militaristic as well.
I saw, you might be able to answer this, Aaron. In the cinema, there was a trailer for an audio book.
Yeah.
And because, like I say, I didn't see it like Keith. I didn't watch anything, and I've not kind of, for last year, I suppose, I've not really been on sites very much. So I'm kind of playing catch up with all this. But what's that about?
They've done 2, one last year and one this year, both released on Alien Day, and they're based on those novels that just mentioned. So the first one was on Out of the Shadows, and this one that they've just done, they actually skipped to the third one. So that was the Hadley's Hope prequel, and surprisingly, really awesome. I mean, they still have the same issues that the novels do. So Ripley's still in the in Outer Shadows, and Colonial Marines are still in River of Pain. But the overall experience is surprisingly.
Well, the production value seemed to be quite high when I saw the trailer. So
it's a BBC thing with
I was
Audible.
Gonna say, is it an audio drama or somebody reading the book?
full cast audio drama? So
I love those things. I love audio dramas. So
they've got a lot of Alien alumni in it as well. I mean, Colin Salmon, who's in AVP, is in it. Mac McDonald, I think his name is. Al Simpson from the special edition. He's in both of them as different characters.
Oh wow! I'll have to check this out then. Yeah.
Oh,
I love a good audio drama. Me, absolutely. So that's you. Really are an aficionado on all this stuff by the sounds, which is great. Can I ask then, as a question to all of you? Obviously, before Alien Covenant went into production, there was a lot of talk about another Aliens type film being made.
You mean Alien 5?
Yeah. Was it called Alien 5? I don't know, but whatever. And obviously that's obviously since got totally canned or whatever because of this. But what were you? I mean, was that something that you guys had wished had got made? Did you have any sort of pre-thoughts on that, or do you think it's probably a good thing that it didn't happen? Because it was going to wreck on some stuff, wasn't it?
I was on the fence about it. I mean, somebody on the forums had a nice little slogan about it, where it was like Neil Blomkamp's Alien 3.2. It would have been good in the 90s. Which, I feel, as much as I love Higgs and as much as I love Ripley, and I want to see pulse rifles, flaring into action again, I didn't like the idea of such a massive retcon. I mean, the Alien series, for all its sci-fi elements, its fantastic elements, it's always sort of felt very grounded. And the idea of this sort of diverging timeline, it just sounded too Marvel to me, too Star Trek.
I was never keen on it either. I think it'd be interesting to see, but only if it's good. That's kind of one of my concerns. But yeah, I think there was a time to do it, and they went in a different direction. And I don't know. I kind of like Blomkamp's work. I think, like Cameron, he's got a very good sense of design. As far as Cameron's very strong on, machinery and arms and things like that. And I think Blomkamp's very strong on sort of AI and robots, that kind of thing. So I think his take would have been interesting, but I don't know. I never really thought it would get off the ground. And as I understand it, there's various theories going around as to why it didn't happen and is not going to happen. So it's.
I'd love to see him tackle an Alien film, just not necessarily Alien 3.2.
Simon?
Well, I mean, I tell the truth. I mean, apart from District 9, I don't think Neil Blomkamp's made that good a film, really. I mean, Elysium was a bit of a disappointment, and I haven't really seen Chappie. But I mean, the sort of designs we saw I thought was good. I thought, it would have been nice to see Sigourney Weaver and Michael Biehn being reunited and seeing where, Aliens was kind of heading. But I don't think we'll get to see that now. And
that's an interesting point, because if it had been a great success, if they'd made it and it'd been a great success, then they would have demanded more sequels in that direction, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Maybe where Cameron would have taken Aliens in the first place. So that would have been an interesting sort of divergence from the timeline that we got. But I guess, alas, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, the Alien universe, messed up as it may be now, it's never really been about sort of time travel and alternate realities and different timelines and all that sort of thing. And, that's very much, like you said, it's a sort of Star Trek type trope. And maybe it would be a big mistake to sort of go there, especially after so much time has passed since Aliens anyway. you know, I'm at the same time, I'm not so sure that this prequel route has done it any real favors either. You know, second time round, if you include Alien vs Predator.
Can I say something? I just had this thought while we were just talking about this. I get the feeling that once Ridley Scott sort of finished doing these prequels, they could quite easily just go in and remake Alien to fit.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They'll tear it up and start again. They
Again,
will.
yeah.
I'm surprised
I mean,
we've avoided it so long, to be honest.
They've made a feature film of Baywatch and Chips out this summer, so yeah, they'll definitely do it with Alien.
Yeah.
What, and make it a spoof?
Gosh,
Parody.
but I think that's a given at some point, you know, and
Yeah, because it's the only way for these films to make any goddamn sense.
I mean, as Aaron said earlier, a lot of the expanded universe stories, I mean, I remember a graphic novel, Alien versus Predator, which would have made a great film, and I think Briggs did a script, didn't he, Aaron? Briggs.
Yeah, he did too.
I did. You know, that would have made a great film, but it needed, you know, the budget to do it. And I think all of these films, you know, they're kind of going nowhere really, and all these ideas have been played out really now, and you know, they do kind of need a new lease of life. And it is a shame that maybe some of these later movies didn't take inspiration from some of the sort of expanded universe works, if you want to call them that, because some of those had really strong ideas, you know, in terms of where you could take the different species and all that kind of stuff. So, but the way they decided to do it, I think it's kind of played out now, or at least it's starting to feel that way.
Yeah, it's really started to feel that way. Right, we're going to end it there. Because we could talk about this all night. But
it comes up on nearly every podcast, doesn't
it? Well, we've made up for 2 podcasts where we haven't mentioned it, so
yeah, fair enough.
So we're going to end in our normal fashion. So Keith, where can we find your work?
Okay, if you go to YouTube and put in British Eyles, spelled Eyles, as in my last name, there are short films there that I've written, produced, and directed that you can look at. And if you want to see other work that I've done, just put my name into IMDb. And
ADC, are you on like Facebook or Twitter?
No. I don't do Facebook, and I'm actually, there's an Alien Encounters page that somebody runs for me on Facebook. I am
still Richard,
but not too much. Yeah, Richard Davin does that, and Darren Kemp. You can find me on IMDb, Andrew David Clark, and at newroadfilms.com.
And Aaron, where can we find you?
Okay, well, you know, I don't have films to my name, unfortunately, but you can see my ramblings and news updates on avpgalaxy.net under Alien vs Predator Galaxy. Twitter is AVP Galaxy. So, you know, you want news, the latest news on Alien and Predator films and stuff, come to me.
And we should just say, Aaron, I suppose you go by Corporal Hicks on AVP.
Oh, yes, I do. My alias online is Corporal Hicks, but real world name is Aaron Percival.
Love it.
I do have an IMDb page, though. I will tell you. There's only documentaries on there.
Oh, okay.
Wow. I'm on your website now, actually, and man, there's a lot of info on here. This is really cool.
It's the best Alien site on the net, without a doubt. It really is a fantastic site.
Oh, thank you.
That is amazing. Seriously. And you get involved in a lot of stuff in the community then with regards to this film series,
and pretty much any, you know, I co-run it with somebody, but I'm pretty much like the public face of this, you know, because I'm so gorgeous and I have such a lovely British voice, but you know, I love the series, so I get involved with pretty much anything or anybody who wants me involved. I will happily come and chat Alien and Predator nerdness with anybody.
All right. Well, you picked the right people here. So.
I knew I'd have listened to several of yours, you know, with Charles and some of your Star Trek ones as well.
Oh, right.
So
excellent.
Yes. Well, and and no doubt this year we'll have, even though we missed May the 4th, we will definitely have more Star Wars stuff coming up as well in future months, won't we, Simon?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
indeed. Well,
indeed.
You can find my work at independentrunnings.com. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcast providers. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. And please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher. It really helps. So it just leaves me to thank ADC and Aaron for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the invite.
Appreciate it. No, it's been fun.
Yes, and join us for the next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.